Ryan Abraham is the publisher of USCFootball.com, a premier place to talk USC football. He is a member of the Football Writers Association. You would know Ryan because because of his name, he's always the first person on the list. So he's like the very first person listed in the Football Writers Association directory, and he's also a Heisman voter. So welcome to the Heisman Trophy podcast, Ryan.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. I think I might be number 2 in the Heisman vote because they're like numbered. Maybe I'm 1 now, but I was 2 at some point. So someone has a better A name than I have, I guess.
Do you have a middle name that we can like switch to your first name?
David, if you like. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, maybe you could be David. I bet you David Abraham would put you back in the lead for the Heisman list. Hey, listen, so we just talked to Jaden Maiava earlier in the program, and I just thought it would be great to get a USC perspective on what kind of quarterback he has been from the perspective of USC media, USC fans, and also your thoughts on where you think he's going to go.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see his sort of growth and development, and I think we don't talk about development enough in this sport because the guys do get developed. There are guys that he was really good when he was at UNLV, but there were certainly a lot of places where he could grow, and then to get thrust in last season in the last 4 games and have some really high highs and some really low lows. I think a lot of USC fans were sort of like, I don't know if this is the guy. Maybe they're going to go into the portal. And, if Lincoln Riley knows quarterbacks. And I think the fact that he didn't go into the portal and try to bring somebody in, he had a lot of confidence in Jaden Maiava that he could develop in the offseason, and having months and months to work with the team as the number 1 guy and then be able to lead this program. And so far, I think he's done a really nice job. He looks like a different quarterback to me, Chris, than what I saw the end of last year. To have, he had 1 turnover in the Illinois game, but that is only turnover of the season. He had 7 in the last 4 games, including 2 like field long pick sixes against Notre Dame. He just doesn't seem to put the ball in harm's way as much. And I think seeing the touch downfield, like he just hit some guys in stride with Jacoby Lane and Mackay Lemon. He seems to put the ball in a place where those guys who are really elite wide receivers can catch it. And I think some of the screen passes, traditionally at USC, sometimes even when you've had good quarterbacks, the timing didn't seem to work well. It's working pretty well, I think, when he's distributing the football. And he can take off and run too. And some of the fakes have been good when you're doing the RPOs. And I think a couple weeks ago when they went for it on 4th down 4 times and got them all, he looked really smooth in all of them. Sometimes a 4th down play looks like a fire drill. You're like scrambling, what's going on? It looked like, here's the play call. This is what we're going to run. He executed it, and they picked it up the first down easily on all those. So he seems to just have a much more command of what's going on. And I think he's grown a lot. If you watch him last year to this year, he's definitely advanced. And the fact that he can still have some really spectacular plays and not put the ball in harm's way, nowhere near as much as he did last year, I think it's a sign of his growth.
Yeah, he had some big time throws against Illinois, especially that last touchdown to Mackay Lemon, just a ice cold killer type of throw. He's developed a penchant for bringing the team back. He did it again against Illinois. Of course, he didn't get the win, but that really wasn't his fault necessarily. You look at his season, 1,587 yards, 71% completion, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, another 4 touchdowns on the ground. If you had asked Trojan fans before the season through 5 games, whether that would be something that Jaden Maiava was capable of, what do you think that the percentage who would have agreed with that would have been?
I think the numbers they would have been okay with. The only 1 interception and no fumbles, I don't think they would have been like, yeah, that's really not going to happen. We knew he was going to turn the ball over eventually. But through 4 games,
all do, right? They all do.
Yeah. You're and Brett Favre, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, most interceptions in NFL history, right? I think it's one of those things, or maybe it's Tom Brady now, I'm not sure, but whatever it is, like,
well, he played 100 years, so he's probably going to have.
You're going to put the ball in harm's way eventually, and if you're not, you're probably doing something wrong. But you don't want to be, he's just nowhere near as loose with the football. I think in the Illinois game, he just didn't see that linebacker underneath and kind of threw it to him. But that's going to happen sometimes. I think USC fans would certainly take what you've seen from him. It's just been, the numbers have been great. The offense, it's like, if you want to judge it, how good an offense is, do they punt? USC offense doesn't really punt that much. So
one punt against Illinois, right?
Yeah, 1 punt against Illinois. The previous 4 games they had, they had one garbage time punt. They only punted in like one game. They punted like 3 times in the Georgia Southern game. Outside of that, there was a garbage punt against um, Michigan State, and that's it. So if you're not punting and not turning the ball over that much, that's usually a pretty good sign. Like Purdue, they stalled in the red zone and had like 5 field goal attempts, but it's not a team that goes out there and punts all the time. They're not playing field position. It's just hard to stop. And I think without him running the show, I don't know if they would be. He's just really kind of grown as a quarterback and works in the confines of Lincoln Riley's offense.
Yeah, there's been 3 Lincoln Riley starting quarterbacks at USC: Caleb Williams, Miller Moss, and now Jaden Maiava. Between the two, I guess, who preceded him, which of the two would you say he tends to ebb closer to? Because he doesn't seem to have the creativity of Caleb Williams back in the pocket. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe he plays more within the system, and yet he also seems to have a little bit more magic than Miller Moss had back there.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. There's, he gets outside the pocket sometimes, and he can do all right. But there's one of the things with Caleb Williams, he would get outside the pocket, and you're finding guys downfield. I think Sam Darnold had some of that too, where you can be creative. We're seeing, I think he's doing a pretty good job of that. But there is some creativity, but I think it's a different brand than Caleb Williams had, where that was just magic. And sometimes you weren't sure. It's like, no. Yes.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Yeah.
But certainly there's more creativity than Miller Moss. But I think he does try to operate the offense in the, within the confines of things. And here's your first read, here's the second read, and kind of go from there. So I think maybe a little bit of a combination of the two, but he's doing a nice job. And some of the touch on some of those throws is just, maybe you weren't like kind of expecting that. And I'd like to see him, maybe run a little bit more. They brought in Huston Longstreet to do a couple of those in the Illinois game. I think he's certainly capable of doing that. Maybe they're just being a little more protective, but he can scramble a little bit and pick up yards with his legs. And he's picked up some key 3rd and 4th downs so far, but I think they could actually do that even a little bit more.
Yeah. One thing I've been trying to figure out, look, he's a Lincoln Riley quarterback. Lincoln Riley quarterbacks have had a tremendous historical success. You have 3 Heisman Trophy winners, Heisman runner-up, another guy who maybe didn't completely pan out in college, but he's sticking in the NFL. And now, and then Miller Moss was really the only one who didn't achieve like just this resounding success, at USC or at the school that Lincoln Riley was at, coaching him. And yet, so we have Maiava, who is 3rd in the nation in passing efficiency. He was leading the nation in passing efficiency before the Illinois game, still very high in his numbers. Tremendous start to the season. And yet, there seems to be very muted opinions about him. But yet he's a Lincoln Riley quarterback who quarterbacks USC. And yet he seems to be sort of in the recesses of the conversation on the national scale. And why do you think that is, despite all those other advantages that he has to go working for him?
Yeah, you know that USC does have advantages if you're the quarterback of USC and you're winning. I think the national media had sort of a, they were a wait and see attitude because USC had been bad the last couple of years, 13-11 in the regular season. And they've been typically one of the more overranked preseason AP poll teams, and they weren't ranked in the preseason. It took them to go, 3-0 or 4-0 before they end up getting, ranked in the AP, and then they dropped out after losing, on a last-second field goal to Illinois. I think if more people had faith in the team, that they were like, hey, this team has actually turned a corner, and then I think that would probably come along, and you have more faith in Jaden Mayava. But if he can keep putting up those numbers, and if you can beat Michigan in a couple of weeks and get a road win at like a Nebraska, I think that's going to help. And then they have a couple of really tough games at Oregon and at Notre Dame. And the Notre Dame game can always be something for, getting a boost, where if USC goes and loses that game on the road, but Mayava just balls out and he's just playing really well, I think that'll help them. But it's almost like a wait and see sort of attitude, just kind of like the team. They're like, we think they could be good, but let's see if, what really happens. USC lost that game, but it wasn't Jaden Maiava's fault. I mean, he played really well and moved
342 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. It seems like he wouldn't be penalized too much. I mean, you're a Heisman voter. If you're going back and looking at that game, you're like, okay, he didn't, crap the bed, so to speak. So he played pretty well. Do you think that's something that most Heisman voters will understand as they're looking at his resume, if it comes down to that?
Yeah, I think you have to have the wins, though. I don't think if this is like a 7-5 team and he has like ridiculous numbers, I mean, they would have to be like really ridiculous. I think
Right.
he's going to have really good numbers, but you need to have, if it's like a 9-3 and you're sort of like in the playoff discussion, I think he would be up there. But so many times it's going to go to, oh, the 11-1 team, and the guy's a stud and putting up a lot of stuff. So I think he will. I think USC does have to win games though for him to be sort of in that kind of conversation. He's also kind of a, he's not the most boisterous guy. He's kind of a quiet guy.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the answers in the media have been sort of short lately. I think for him, he's someone that can be very hard on himself, very critical. And I think he's trying to focus more on play than like playing the
Mm-hmm.
media game. And other quarterbacks are just really good at like talking to everyone and just engaging. Caleb Williams, you could listen to him talk for a long time. That's not, at least right now, in this early stages of Jaden Maiava being like the number one guy, he's more of a muted approach. And I don't know, that might have an effect on it too.
Well, certainly sometimes when you get a case with someone who is maybe not a great talker, the process of being in the Heisman race actually ends up making them a pretty good talker by the end. Carson Palmer was a guy who didn't talk very well throughout most of his career, or at least didn't really like talking very much. But as he kept doing it more and more, he keep getting the reps, you end up getting better and better. So maybe that will be the case for him. So anyway, tough loss for the Trojans at the Illini. What was the mood like after the game, particularly with the offense and Maiava, and what were you able to gather maybe from a lot of the nonverbal communication going on?
Yeah, we get to see some of the coaches leaving the press box, because when we're coming down and, just very quiet, I think upset. Just, I feel like I think they knew that they missed an opportunity in this game. Illinois was going to come back and circle the wagons after getting absolutely boat raced by Indiana. And I think it was up to USC to not allow that to happen, to not get punched in the mouth. And I think they, there's some built-in excuses with the 9 a.m. local, the body clock time, and Kamari Ramsey, your best defender, getting sick and not being able to play at the last minute. They're, your center
played a lot of freshmen in the secondary, right?
Yeah, but they were a team that was getting after the quarterback, and they weren't able to get pressure against the offensive line that gave up 9 sacks to Indiana the week before to only get 1. So I think some of it was like, hey, everything didn't go exactly the way we planned, but you have to know that this is going to be a situation that going into the season, a top 10 road win was going to be tough to get. But then seeing what happened the week before, I think they all realized like this was a real opportunity, and then just kind of go out and blew it. So I think some of them know that like we blew a real big opportunity here. They had a lot of confidence, Chris, in the offseason about everything they did to try to improve this program. Fortunately, that looked a lot like what you'd seen last year when they were on the road in the Big Ten. And I think that's what they wanted to avoid more than anything. And it slapped them right in the face.
Well, Ryan, do you think, you look at what Illinois did against Indiana, and you can maybe chalk it up to a couple things. Illinois having they're on the road. Indiana's at home. Teams play better on the road, or worse on the road, better at home. So now Illinois is back at home, backs against the wall. Everyone saying how poorly they did. Very embarrassing loss. So their backs against the wall. USC, like you said, comes with a little bit crazy time schedule, and they're not as good on the road. Was the outcome of the game the result of Illinois being better at home, or just that USC's not so good on the road, or both?
I think it's a combination. I mean, I think Brett Bielema is a tough coach, and he's never lost a game like that. And to get pushed around, I think he really challenged a veteran offensive line that everyone came back, and they were giving up sacks to everybody, FCS schools. And USC was leading the nation in sacks. Illinois, no one, as Power 4 teams, no one had given up more sacks than Illinois had. So I think that was like hey, we're going to change this. And I couldn't figure out why that offensive line that was good last year that blocked like South Carolina in the bowl game, and they have a bunch of defensive linemen that are NFL type of players, why they were sort of bad. But I think they got nasty in this one, Chris. I think they took this to heart. It was a chip on their shoulder thing, and they just pushed USC around. And none of the defensive linemen for USC were hurt. And they were playing well. Came in there and kind of got punched in the mouth, and then didn't have a plan anymore. And I give props to Illinois for doing that, but I think USC needed to be better prepared. Some things went wrong for sure, but this was a team, you came in as a touchdown favorite for a reason, and you were trailing the whole game. It was a miracle that they got. I mean, for them to get a 1 point lead, 2 minutes left in the game was crazy. But I think they got punched in the mouth and didn't really have an answer.
Yeah, that sounds pretty valid. Now looking at Maiava again, just bringing it back to him. If you're Lincoln Riley, you still have to feel pretty good about your pupil here, right? Because he did one of the most important things that a quarterback can do in this kind of situation. He brought the team back. He made some big time throws. Is that something you think that uh, does he have do you think he has the mental resilience, Jaden Maiava, to overcome these losses and to keep, because Caleb Williams used to bring the team back a lot of times in these games. And a lot of times they beat these close losses, and you could sort of see the frustration build up in him over time. What kind of makeup do you think Jaden Maiava has as far as being able to get through some of these tough times that could potentially arise as the season goes on?
Yeah, we've seen him bounce back from some adversity. I think that Illinois game, you mentioned it. I mean, for them to trail the whole game, he threw his first pick. Unfortunately, they're really good running back, Waitman Jordan, fumbles on the opening drive, and you're down 7-0, and then you start realizing the defense isn't going to get a stop here.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're down and Illinois is going to get the ball to start the second half, it could have went really awry. They got a couple of really fortunate turnovers as Illinois was going to score. But that gave the opportunity to only be down 14 in the fourth quarter, and you're able to drive down and get a touchdown, go for two, which the analytics say that's a better chance of winning that way, and it works, and they end up getting the stop, and then Jaden Maiava drives again to the point where you probably scored too fast, right? Like the way the defense was playing, but 6 minutes left in the game, I thought he was really calm, cool, and collected, threw some great balls on that drive, found his stud, Mackay Lemon. And Mackay Lemon, and also Jacoby Lane came in and made some catches too. And that touchdown was a thing of beauty. The only issue was, did you need to throw a touchdown on 1st and 10 with 2 minutes left, or could you have run the ball a couple of times to try to use some clock? But he looked, to me, that was a game where the whole game was adversity. You were climbing out of a hole the entire time. And even with his first turnover of the season, I don't think he let it impact him. So I think Lincoln Riley has confidence that he can be the guy. I mean, there was a ton of adversity in that game, and it didn't look like there was a stretch, Chris, in the third quarter when he threw that pick that some of the throws were high. It didn't look like his feet were planted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's brief, but he got it back, and still his overall numbers were good. If you have a few minutes of a stretch of a game where you just doesn't look like yourself, that's one thing. But they able to rally and come back from it. He didn't just turtle up and just go, "Oh, we're going to lose this game." He fought back from when he wasn't even playing well personally, and then had those two drives at the end, which were really special.
One name that keeps coming up in the discussion, Mackay Lemon, just an outstanding receiver. I think he's in the top 5 nationally. I think he's 3rd nationally in receiving yards. Maybe is he a guy who could potentially challenge for the Heisman from the receiver role?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for receivers to do that stuff. He does return some kicks. He didn't in the Illinois game, I think, because Jacoby Lane was out. They don't want him to get hurt too, but he is special. He literally, Jeremiah Smith, obviously, just a freak of nature. And he's more of an Amon-Ra, St. Brown type, I think. But man, just watching his feet, the way he's able to make guys miss. He had a 75-yard touchdown catch taken away for a illegal man downfield penalty. That's one of his numbers would have been even crazier. But a lot of USC fans are mentioning that. I think it would be really tough for him to kind of get into that conversation. But he is a special wide receiver. We've seen a lot of them at USC, and just the stuff he's able to do. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Okay, Ryan, what is, you're a Heisman voter. You've been a Heisman voter for over a decade now, I think. What is your criteria when you're looking at a Heisman Trophy winner? What do you typically do? Do you sit down at the end of the season and go over some notes, or do you have a running list, or do you have a running sort of tally of what are you paying attention as the season goes along specifically for Heisman, or do you wait till the end and kind of gather your thoughts from there?
I kind of early season, just sort of get a feel for the landscape. And then by mid-season, then you start having some candidates and taking some notes. And, I try to keep it more okay, I want to be reasonable and logical about it, and seeing what, every situation is, can be unique. I think I could be okay with if a defender was on there, if they're forcing a lot of turnovers, or, scoring touchdowns on special teams and things like that. Like, I think Manti Te'o was one of the guys, before, and he didn't have it. I don't think he had any fumble recovery. I mean, there wasn't like a turnover aspect of it. I just was like a good player on a great Notre Dame team. So to me, it wouldn't have worked. But like Travis Hunter last year did things that we've never seen before. And to be an elite offensive player and elite defensive player, I had no problem putting him number one. So I try to just kind of, the situations are different each week. I don't want it to be the quarterback of the number one team in the country. Like we've seen that happen before. It could be, but I don't want it just because you're the quarterback of this team that's amazing, that's steamrolling people. I think now there's so much parity, and there might not be the juggernauts that's the 15-0s and stuff anymore. You get the 2-loss.
You don't need to win all your games anymore, right?
There's you don't have
incentive to, right?
So I think, that, and then how they're, how much they're, an important part of that team's success. I mean, and if it's a running back for like if it's like Western Kentucky's running back has 2,500 yards, like you got to look at it, like, hey man, that's crazy.
Sure.
But I try to keep an open mind, and then start, making my list like mid-season, and, unique situations, I don't mind voting for them, to win. It's, Travis Hunter last year was crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
And, I like a guy like Ashton Jeanty, I thought was awesome. I think I had him second on my ballot just because he was so special for a really good Boise State team. So
is your third ballot pick usually just like, a flyer kind of thing?
I try to have West Coast representation when possible, if it's two like East Coast guys and there's a third like if Jeanty was maybe not as good, like he might be my third guy just because I can be such a regional sort of thing. But I try to get some West Coast representation if that's possible.
It helps to balance things out a bit. Brian Abraham of USCFootball.com, the unofficial mayor of Hermosa Beach, California. If you guys are ever in Hermosa Beach and you're down by the volleyball courts, he'll probably be there. So thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate your insight on USC and Jaden Maiava, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.